All right, Creature Commandos, episode 4. The show has proven to be okay with moments that are good. Other moments, it's just not my thing, especially if you're really not into the James Gunn thing. I'm not sure if you're even going to like the show. And episode 4 is another sort of like, well, let's just sprinkle in some backstory around this main conflict with this princess that they had been sent to protect. And I don't know, ended up banging Rick Flag. And then the bride and Frankenstein have a little backstory. And then, of course, we got some GI robot stuff, which has really only been the highlight of the series for me personally. Now, I will say that I haven't really talked about this element much, but this episode definitely deserves a moment to take a pause because it's also in conjunction with the week where, yeah, James Gunn also dropped like the Superman trailer, right? And it's like this smarmy sit back in the chair, animate himself into it thing. I never have liked this smug element, and I just thought that was not something I expected from him going into the show. And ugh, yuck. So, all right, let's get to the details. Backstory. Where's Weasel? Here's Bride. Oh, it's Frankenstein spying, trying to find the bride. He hires these mercenaries to take him, and then he is so insecure about the bride, thinking everyone's infatuated like him until he murders this guy about insecurities. The helicopter will crash, and then he's consumed with the thought that Rick Flag is the one who's actually out there trying to bang the bride. It is just a stupid little side quest that makes no sense, just consuming time. And we'll get to more in a why in a second. This lady right here, this insufferable woman, is the Weasel's lawyer. She refers to him as John, and I'm like, oh, the Weasel's a dude named John. I didn't know. And oh no, that's just John Doe. She's just convinced that he has all of these human traits and backstory and whatever. And the episode's going to sprinkle in moments where we see what happened to Weasel. How did he even end up here? And it's sort of like not nearly as good as you would expect. Here's the Frankenstein scene, and then they're going to cut back to Cersei. And if you if you liked Amanda Waller, I want to hear from you to explain to me why you would like her now. So in the comic books right now, there's a storyline that was called Absolute Power, and it set up her being a villain who took down all of the Justice. We couldn't have any of these heroes. The show is exaggerating even the freelance nonsense that she was getting away with the Suicide Squads. Here, she's doing things even more egregious without. I mean, this is in total conflict with all of the ethics of the other superheroes. And by the way, Superman can hear. Why is he not responding? The Flash could be there in a moment's notice. Like there's a silliness that James Gunn is falling into a trap here with what Marvel did too. They would write these stories that create major conflicts with the rest of their universe. They only work if they stay in their little bubble. And this is one of these key elements as she slides further and further and further into like a villain role and not someone that's trying to do anything positive. All right, so then we cut a back and forth with the lawyer and this whole story with the weasel and meeting these kids, but he's really a sweet, weird, creepy golem-like creature that plays with them, and he's never really trying to uh, be a monster as they've kind of painted him as. And then later we have another cutaway where he's dreaming, and you get more of the story where he's finding these kids, and there's this weird dude out there who calls the cops, and there ends up being an accidental fire. And it basically just kind of traps all the kids. The police arrive. They see Weasel interacting and trying to save, especially the one little girl that he's bonded to, and they don't understand what's going on. They end up firing upon Weasel, trying to save her. And this is what actually had happened. And they're like, he's twitching in his sleep, and this is where the name of the episode comes from. He must be chasing squirrels. Like that's how animals sleep. So all the stuff with Cersei comes to a head because she knows more than she has let anyone know. She has this sort of weird premonition, sort of clairvoyance about this apocalyptic future. All of the Justice League have been murdered. And then she shares this sort of vision with Amanda Waller, and it's all orchestrated around the princess being the actual villain, and therefore they need to go and kill the princess. So They undo everything that we've done to this point. Had Cersei had just told someone what was going on, we wouldn't be in this boat. If Amanda Waller wasn't just so narcissistic and narrow-minded, she's only sending like 3 or 4 monsters back. I got to be honest. If this is what you're faced with, I don't care if Rick Flag's got a bad attitude. You would rally like 20 of these Suicide Squad type people. Like James Gunn is just getting a free pass that you won't think through any of these things. You'll stay in a very small, little narrow bubble that he's painted for you, all nice and fenced in. Amanda Waller is going to do this. Don't think about it. Blah, blah, blah. All right, there's a quick little bickering with Rick Flag and her. They're going to banter about it before uh, Frankenstein follows Rick Flag because remember, he is convinced that Rick Flag is trying to bang the bride. And look, the Frankenstein is literally like crying and weeping, like, "Hey man, no, I'm not. I'm on your side, man." It's comments about tea. It's Frankenstein has some jokes because he doesn't totally understand humor, and there's, of course, pop culture references like Harry Met Sally and stuff. Like James Gunn's stuff and his shtick is actually exceedingly narrow, and it does have moments. It also has a lot of misses. No one's in the room evidently telling James Gunn like this in this weird. Why do we have Frankenstein then? Like none of this is adding any value. There's this quick little flashback and what's got us here, and then he just kind of like stays on the outskirts. Like, and by the way, how did they get so close to Belle Reve Prism where everyone was? No one noticed Frankenstein in this helicopter. Like, don't think about things. That's the way this show works. Just don't think about things. And that's how the episode kind of ends. They kind of have their thing. They end up on this little aircraft. There's a couple little comments about, hey, why did you save me? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Why I still owe you. Dr. Phosphorus is just reading. I still don't understand how close they on the dude, but hey, we're not going to address that. And then we have the squirrel flashback stuff with Weasel, and that's kind of how the episode goes. So all in all, exceedingly disappointing because we have opportunities to add some depth to characters, but this little Weasel flashback thing is kind of like a waste of our time. Like it would have been easier to have maybe laid out the photos and let the audience kind of know completely what the police think and then have Weasel like a flashback memory. But there's not someone in the DC universe that can read a mind. There's not someone that Amanda Waller knows. Clairvoyance that Cersei has can't be used to find out what's actually going on with Weasel. Like, well, reality is we ended up here because Cersei didn't tell anyone. She's got this power and this clairvoyant, this vision, and couldn't she have just told Rick Flag instead of all that big bang hustle nonsense and someone dying? Could have just said, "Hey, by the way, you don't know what happened. Let me show you my vision." Could she have told Amanda Waller or someone else previously? It's just again, this is the Marvel thing. Gunn has brought over all of the mistakes that Marvel made with, especially with the TV stuff. It's like Moon Knight with they changed the sky and no one else in the MCU would notice. There's a celestial frozen out there somewhere. No one will least acknowledge it. All these threats, this global threat of secret invasion is happening, but we're not going to call any real heroes that have powers. Oh no, we're not going to do that. So Gunn is off doing this where we take the main character and put him with like the crybaby Frankenstein, and we have random flashbacks. Notice G.I. Robot, I don't even think is in a frame in this episode after last episode. Like you get attached to the character after a whole episode, and then you don't even, I don't even think there's a character moment. Oh, big disappointment. 3 steps forward, 1 step back. No, it's the other way around. 1 step forward, 3 steps back. That's how I feel about this show. And the sad thing is, as bad as this show is, it feels better because most things stink so bad. It feels like a B or B minus when in fact it's more like a C minus. And it's because everything else is just terrible and it makes this look better than it actually is. So don't think, just consume. That's the philosophy they're giving us. And Creature Commandos is another example of it, folks. So anyway, that's my take on it. I'm Pops.